of the internet. Welcome back to another show. I'm your host, Kurt Smits, and Dan, the man, is not with us again today. He's catching up from his vacation and getting stuff done with his family, so I'm going to be your host tonight. And we got a killer show for you tonight, man. I got two wild, crazy guys that love spinnerbaits, and let's just bring them on, and they're going to introduce themselves to you right now. Jake Harshman and Tim Perkins. Guys, I'm looking forward to this show tonight. Basically, I think most people who are listening to this show probably know both you guys are. But Jake, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll have Tim introduce himself.
All right. Well, my name's Jake Harshman. I've been kayak fishing now for a number of years. I am a Susquehanna River rat. I love power fishing. I love big, giant smallmouth. And Kurt didn't tell me that this was going to be a podcast and not a YouTube video. I got 38 spinnerbaits sitting here beside me, and I'm going to have to describe each one. So,
I think I did say it was a podcast. I'm pretty sure. But
well, maybe I misunderstood.
I'll take the blame. Tim, how about you, man?
All right, I'm Tim Perkins. I'm a river rat. I'm a lifelong river rat. I've been around the world and back. I did the bass boat, glamour boat scene for about 20 years, but it just seemed like that every competition that I was in a bass boat, I'd end up in a river somewhere. So I just cannot deny it anymore. And I started kayak fishing. I've probably been kayak fishing 20-something years. So it's been an awesome ride. And the spinnerbait has been my tool of choice for numbers of years.
You were one of my original inspirations to learn the spinnerbait, Tim. Just to let you know, you really were, man. You kicked my ass in a tournament with that thing, man. And I remember listening to you talk about it, and I was just like, damn, man, I got to buy some of those things, man.
Being a river rat, Tim, being a river rat, that I don't think there's a better bait for moving water than a spinnerbait.
Oh, no. It's the most versatile bait. Yeah. And, I've had many arguments or discussions, I must say, with other river people. And, I proved them wrong in a couple of occasions that you can actually make a spinnerbait mimic a crawfish. They'll argue that, but I do it every day. So,
let's talk about that for a second. I want to hear about that. Before let's just throw the whole thing out the door, and let's just talk about crawfish imitation with the spinnerbait for a second, man.
Okay. Tell me. I designed spinnerbaits for Redline Lures, which is Ricky McKenzie in Mississippi. All right. I started that probably in 2010, 2011. But we make a Pro Series spinnerbait. And I kind of stumbled across this just through experience on the water. I mean, there's nothing that beats experience, So here where I'm at is like a miniature where Jake's at. We have tiny rivers where he has these super ginormous rivers, the Susquehanna. But still, though, they chase crawfish. So I had to have something that would imitate a crawfish. So I take a black spinnerbait. And I think I've actually on the Outdoor Coach, my YouTube channel, I think I've got a video that I made using what my setup. I take a black spinnerbait, it's double Colorado, and I take a Ultra Vibe chunk that Zoom makes, and I put it on the back of it. And I started making these little punches out of hole punches to hold as a bait keeper to hold my chunk. Where it stays parallel with it. And dude, I cannot tell you the 8s, 9s, 10s that I've actually caught off that stupid bait. But what you do is I'm fishing wood, a lot of wood in some of these skinny rivers. So as I pitch that bait over that wood and I bring it back, it creates a silk trail. Well, that fish is looking up. He sees that silk trail, bam, he pounds it. So my kids, even we were out fishing today with a couple of kids, But my kids don't throw nothing but. When we're on these little rivers, and there's a little phenomenon that's going on right now on the Tallapoosa. That's where I live at. These red eye, or they're starting to, they don't call them red eye anymore. They're calling them Tallapoosa bass. They're starting to be pre-spawned. So these fish, we're catching 60 or 70 a day, and they're just crawfish vacuum cleaners. So, dude, it's every cast. It's a ton of fun. But anyway, that's how a spinnerbait can be a crawfish imitator. Is I pull it over that log, I just drop it, and those little tails just flip, and bam. It's
Tim's point: when you're fishing a very shallow river that has moving water, you deal with a whole lot of snags when you're trying to sit something on the bottom and pull it across there. You're not getting that with a spinnerbait. That spinnerbait's not going to get snagged up. It'll come through dang near everything you pull it through. And if you get yourself a brown or a black spinnerbait and throw a crawl style trailer on the back of it, they just look at it and they're looking at the profile, they're looking at the motion, and they're like, well, everything looks right. That looks like a crawfish to me. And our smallmouth up here will do the same thing his fish are doing. They'll come from a long way to eat a crawfish that's scurrying across the bottom.
So
most of the baits that I'm throwing has got a light wire to it. So not only have I've got the imitator with the trailer on the back, but I'm adding vibration, a lot more vibration than most of the baits. It's got a little wobble to it. And in a river like that where these fish are opportunists, they're just feeling that vibration that a regular crawfish is making, scurrying across the water, and they're gonna grab it quick before somebody else does. Yeah. So that's the big.
What weight are you using for that? I mean, you're fishing. It sounds like skinny water, right? I mean,
right. And it's like Jake said. You cannot. It's work. It is work. There are so many downfalls in the little rivers that, a lot of times you're out of the boat more than you're in the boat, but you go to these pockets and I'm pulling that bait through this wood. It's just a tangled freaking mess. Most people wouldn't even throw a worm in there, but I'm throwing a spinnerbait in there. But I'm throwing anything. I'll tie on 2 spinnerbaits, and one's a quarter and one's a 3/8. 3/8 my go-to. If there's a lot of current, I'll do a 3/4, but it's on the same frame as my 3/8. And we can do that with the River series that we produce with Redline. It's got a hidden weight on it. So you're not upping your profile. You're just adding weight to dictate the current. That's the one thing as a fisherman, as a spinnerbait fisherman, I couldn't dictate is the amount of current I was facing. So I carry all kinds of spinnerbaits in my box, and they're usually about 2 colors, but I've got different variations as tools to the current I face, to the to the cover I face, or the structure I face, and we roll with it.
For me, and to his point, I use a lot of heavier spinnerbaits than what most people would assume that I would use, just because of the amount of current that we have here in the Susquehanna River. It's it's a significant river system. There's a lot of volume of water coming down it. My spinnerbait size of choice is typically a half ounce. If I'm trying to burn it like a topwater, I'll go 3/8 ounce, but half ounce, 3/4 is pretty common for me to use, just because if I need to slow roll it or get it down to the bottom, I need that weight, even if it's just 1 feet of water.
Where you are too now, you have troughs. Those rocks make troughs, and we have certain rivers down here that do those same things. And those bigger fish are laying down in those troughs. And a lot of times, that's what you got to do is you got to get that bait down to that fish.
Right.
And most people they fish over fish. I have no problem fishing behind it. I have no problem. I've been doing it with my twins. My twins are so competitive, and they get out front, and I'm just like, okay. That's where they learn tricks and learn life lessons right there. Oh man, go come in with a whale, right?
Kurt and I went fishing a couple years ago on the Susquehanna River, and I fished behind him all day and caught fish. So
That's the truth.
Oh, I
right
don't know
there.
if that's good or bad.
That's the truth. That's the truth, man. That's my first time on the Susquehanna.
Look,
man.
I would love.
I was a fish out of water.
I would love for you guys to be down here, man. This time of year, I live for this time of year, and it starts about right now, and through July. I mean, as hot as you can get it, humid as you can get it, and dude, some of these fish will put a show on for you, man, and it's awesome. I hope and pray that I can do this when I'm 80. You know what I mean? Because I love it.
So we got a little bit ahead of ourselves here, man. We kind of jumped in right
Rabbit hole.
specifically to the crawl pattern with the spinnerbait. So
Yeah.
when is the time to pull out a spinnerbait, man? For the people who may be a little like not really sure when they should pull it out. Like when are you like, man, I'm pulling it out right now. This is the setup. Jake, why don't you start?
So there's not a month in the year that exists that I won't have a spinnerbait. Because if I need to slow roll a spinnerbait, if I need to put a spinnerbait on the bottom and slow roll it and convince a fish that's, really lethargic and it's cold water, if I need to do that with him, he's going to get a craw trailer. I'm going to throw a double Colorado blade on there, and I'm literally just going to tick the bottom with that thing until I make one angry enough or curious enough to eat it. That might be in December. That might be in January. You might have a hard time doing that in February whenever it's like 10, 15 degrees outside. But, there's not a time of the year that I won't throw a spinnerbait. Now, that being said, as soon as March rolls around, March through October, my boat will always have a spinnerbait tied on it because it's a baitfish imitator for the most part. You can make it look like a crawfish, but it's going to look like a baitfish, and that's what these fish are feeding on, especially in the river systems. They're feeding on the all the abundance of bait. So, the summertime, my spinnerbait tactics are slightly different than most people's, and most people don't think to use a spinnerbait like I use a spinnerbait in the summer. But, it's a topwater bait in the summertime. I'll throw a 3/8 ounce on and a couple small willow leaf blades, and I will flutter those blades across the top of the water, and I will just burn that thing as quick as I can burn it.
Okay, wait a minute. So when you say you're using it as a topwater, now in my mind, when I think of burning a spinnerbait close to the water, it would be more like a wake bait. Are you really like burning it so those blades are like up out of the water and like
every couple reel handle turns, the blades will flutter out of the water.
Okay, yeah. So totally a topwater type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if I need to get it down, I don't typically have the issue of needing to get it down in the summertime because our summertime flows, you can walk across most of this river and not get your knees wet. So I really don't have to worry about getting it down too far. But that's why they key in so much on topwater here because they have a low ceiling. So that you burn that thing over their head and they'll come up and just annihilate it. And that's one of the craziest, most fun bites you'll ever experience when a 4-pound smallmouth eats a spinnerbait off the top of the water when you're reeling it as fast as you can. You remember when you came here that year, Kurt, and I told you that there was no fast was too fast? Do you remember me telling you that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
It's true. It is true. So Tim, man, when do you find like the time is that you pull that you're just dead set on pulling the spinnerbait out?
When I get up every day. whenever I walk outside and hook my boat up, it's always I've always got two tied on. But for me, I won in the River Bassin series. I won 3 national titles on one bait, and it was the first bait I ever designed. And I fished that bait in probably, I don't know, maybe 10 states, 11 states, and it catches fish everywhere I go. And that's our river series. and it's my go-to bait. But for me, it imitates sunfish, bluegill. And starting about May, when these fish start bedding, and I pull it out. I use a combination. For me, and I'm giving this up. This is the first time I've ever given this up. The combination is a 4 1/4 willow, and it's a 3 Colorado. Something about that combination all over the country you can catch fish on, and it's hard to find them in box stores. And I use a light line. And if you can see that, this is an old one, and I put a Zoom trailer on the back of it.
So it's a chartreuse
we do
white.
something a little bit different.
Looks like some type
Chartreuse
of white,
white, and then
trailer
I'll have
in
a
there.
black. So white trailer, white Zoom split tail trailer.
Nice.
You can't hardly see that, but if you see these blades, they're two-tone. Silver at the bottom and gold. That's called a fade blade. That's the technique. I'm trying to get it in that lens, and I can't do it.
I can see it. Yeah.
Opposite.
Yeah. That's interesting.
All right. So what happens in that? It's called a fade blade. And Ricky, their company came up with that technology. We can get technical. I mean, this is the advanced angler. The light reflects on that blade as it pulls through the water. All right, if you've got a silver and a gold, it's called a fade blade. Now that one blade, that one willow leaf blade right there, has 2 reflection points on it. So I'm putting off twice the amount of flash as you are with a regular either silver, nickel, or gold, copper. So I fish this fade blade, and I fish that black spinnerbait. I fish others, but those are my 2 go-tos whenever I want to catch a fish. And I'm fishing it, like he says, in January, February, March, April, May, June, throughout the year.
That's
on my better days.
Same spinnerbait setup for
same spinnerbait. Same spinnerbait. Yep.
We have to change it up a little bit up here now, because our water temperature is getting below freezing. So I'm not going to get away with too many willow leaf blades. They're going to have to be some giant willow leaf blades for me to fish them in December.
I get it. Well, in March sometimes, and if I'm on the lake in March, I may go up to a 7. That's a big old willow leaf blade, big one. But I'm fishing for a different kind of animal.
Right.
But here in these little old bitty rivers, people don't even understand what's out there. I can show you pictures with my kids with 8, 9s, and look, most of the water you can wade the whole stupid thing. But hey, they're out there, and I'm not gonna tell nobody. I'm just going fishing, man.
So this brings up the
now
question.
The red eye.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
The red eye. I'm very passionate about the red eye. Red eye is one of the miniature species of a bass. And here in where I live, we have a very specific species that only happens right here in this drainage, in Tallapoosa drainage. And I actually held the state record for about 20-something years. And our town, we're trying to make it a red eye town. The red eye capital of the world. But if you've never fished for those things, they're usually here in the state of Alabama. A 10-inch one is like a trophy. But I'm catching hybridized. So they've hybridized with the spot now. They're getting up 14, 16, 17 inches, but they're very, very aggressive. The debate's always been between the spot and the smallmouth. But dude, I think there's a new competitor out there. It's the red eye. Anyway, that's all.
I would argue as far as to say that I hope no one from where I live hears me say this, but I like a shoal bass more than I like a smallmouth. I'm just going to be completely honest with you.
Well, that you say that, Jake. I mean, that's very true. But the spots in my area are a lot like the shoal bass that are just south of me right there.
Right.
I mean, they're very aggressive and they're very aware of where they live at. You take a 4 to 6 pounder, dude. If you're not on top of your game, he'll get you off of your game. I mean, you'll lose it. You won't land those fish.
Yeah. The Flint River made me fall in love with some shoalies. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I would move down there tomorrow and fish for shoalies the rest of my life. So
that's why you need to come here now.
Go ahead, Tim.
That's why you need to come here and spend a little time in Northeast Alabama, man. You'll have a new favorite. Jeff came and he stayed with me a couple of times. He likes them.
See, the issue is I can't legally come to the state of Alabama. I might have gotten arrested or once. I'm not.
That may or may not be true, right?
I may or may not have some warrants in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, that's okay, man. I got plenty of kin. It's got the same situation.
So,
we're all cousins or Alabama wannabes anyway, right?
Right. We're all cousins down in Alabama. So speaking of the different leaves, right? The willow leaves, the Colorado blades, the Indiana blades. When do you switch it up? Because I know, like for me, if I'm fishing like really muddy water, or at night, I'll put on a big Colorado blade and go black and go big just to get a big thump, But then like when I'm fishing the river, it's willow leaves is all I fish.
For me, because of again, this is because I'm fishing very shallow water most of the time. I'm almost always using a double willow leaf combination. Very rarely will I switch up to a tandem. If I feel that I need to switch up to a tandem where I have a willow and a Colorado because of water clarity, I'll typically switch baits and I'll start throwing a chatterbait because I feel like I can get more vibration out of the chatterbait than I can out of the double willow leaf. Because again, or the double Colorado, I should say, I'm not fishing a lot of depth. You know what I mean? So if I'm trying to get that thing to come through the current and I'm not getting in the strike zone with a double Colorado because it's slower, it's you can't reel it as fast. It's a slower bait. That's I'll typically move and transition to another bait. So for me, I primarily will throw almost all the time be throwing the double willow leaf blades. Another portion of that is that we don't have many panfish in my river. Most of our bait fish are minnows, shad. You got the golden shiners and stuff like that, and that blade combination. I think of the willow leaf. I think it looks more like the type of bait that we have up here than maybe what there is in other places. So, double willow leaf is my go-to. If I could only pick one and only have one, it would be a double willow leaf.
My go-to is that combination I just explained to you, willow leaf and Colorado combination. That's my number one go-to. And I expand from that. It's sort of like what Jake's talking about. I start off with that combination, and if it's not working out or not, you got to let the fish talk to you. Most people don't understand that. How they hit that bait, how aggressive they hit that bait. That's telling me something about that bait. But if I'm in heavy stain, a lot of times I'll just go with a painted blade, and most people don't even go there, man. I'm like, wow. But I just read a magazine article. I think it was
Don't say that.
Yeah,
What's wrong with you, Tim?
With BASS had written an article back in I think it was back in the early spring, and it was talking about the spinnerbait making a wave back. But look, all the big time guys that are on the trail, they never left it.
Yeah.
Now they throw the baits that make them money, of course. That they're sponsored by, but they keep coming back to that spinnerbait, and they never left it. And that's me. I just never left it, and it's hard for me to get away from it. So, that's my take. Every now and then I will at Kentucky Lake. I got Ricky to make. I'm always thinking about stuff, and I've got an opportunity with Ricky at Redline, and I get a thought, and he'll design me something, and I'll go put it to use. But at Kentucky Lake, I used a single Colorado. It was on a white spinnerbait. I put a white swim bait on the back of it, and it had a short arm on it. And I was throwing it at stumps in the back of creeks. Now, dude, I smoked them on the stupid thing. I mean, it's basically chatterbait water, but I'm throwing a spinnerbait. So,
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the two can be kind of close in how you would fish them sometimes. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yes, and no. But I'll say this: there's a time that you want to throw that spinnerbait more than that chatterbait. If you got a bright sunny day, those spinnerbait blades are going to flash. If you get some cloud cover, I think the chatterbait's going to probably do better than the spinnerbait whenever it's super cloudy and there's no sunlight. But if it's a nice sunny day,
for me,
go ahead, Tim.
Well, for me, it's grass. You know, grass is kind of the kryptonite of my spinnerbait fishing. You know, and it kind of overwhelms me a little bit. I know that if I took a lot of time with it and I fished a lot of grass, that I could learn some shortcuts with it. But it's just a better tool, the chatterbait, with grass lakes. You know, so. You know, but
like
wood, to me, wood and rocks. When
you say grass, you mean like eelgrass?
Hydrilla.
Any of it?
You know, like Gunnersville.
Yeah.
So
that's where the chatterbait's awesome.
I got to tell a quick story about spinnerbait and grass. And it's really not typical type of grass, but lily pads and spatter dock.
Oh, yeah.
You getting some lily pads and some spatter dock, whichever, you know, whatever you want to call it, wherever you're from, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But pads, and you start throwing a spinnerbait through them pads, oh my goodness, is that aggressive? The bite that you get out of that is so aggressive. I was fishing down at the Harris Chain a couple years ago, pre-fishing, and I got into a pad field, and I started throwing the spinnerbait through there, and it was just stupid. It was downright stupid the way those largemouth were coming up and eating that spinnerbait. They do the same thing on the Potomac. They do the same thing on the upper Chesapeake Bay. They do the same thing in some of our lakes around here. And I even found a creek this spring that had a pad field in it. And I started running the spinnerbait through that pad field. And I was wrecking. That was I think my most recent YouTube video was me wrecking big smallmouth out of some pads. Like, it was just the way that spinnerbait will come through pads is, that bite
What size spinnerbait are you throwing through pads?
I mean, it's saying 3/8, half, you know, something like that. I like a ½ ounce because I feel like the only downfall of the spinnerbait and pads is, like you were saying, with using a lighter wire to get more vibration. If you're using a lighter wire and you're throwing it into pads, it can bend out on you a little bit, and then you have to keep messing with it. I prefer
braid though, right?
Or
braid on that.
Yeah, braid. No stretch. No mono, no fluoro. I mean, if you're throwing it in pads, your braid is going to look like a pad stem anyway, so they're not going to mess with, you know, they're not going to care.
Exactly.
But, you know, the no stretch is a big deal when you're doing specifically that technique. But you know, I love a spinnerbait through some pads. That's made me some money.
I tell you, I learned some stuff going you guys' way years ago, getting in some of those smaller rivers up north that are full of smallmouth. That with that ultra clear water, and we have a color at Redline. It's called Houdini. That is bait fishy, and I'm not gonna call any names, but there's a very big company that got a hold of that number through or that color through somebody that I took fishing, and now they have that color. But we actually started that color, and I tell you, it is an awesome color on creeks because that chartreuse was just too loud. And it was like Jake was saying, you guys don't have the kind of brim populations we have in those smaller rivers and creeks. It's more of a little bait fishy color. And I've also took that Houdini and I took a rider out. And I'd never been red fishing. This was about 10 years ago. You take that white trailer on the back of a Houdini colored spinnerbait, that Zoom twin tail, and it mimics a mullet. Dude, I went out one day and I caught 17 reds with that stupid spinnerbait. I had a blast. The first day we were there, nobody in our look, we were camping. Our little camp had caught a red, and I was sitting around. I was asking that rider. I said, "Dude, I said, where do you catch them on?" He said, "What would you be throwing if you was bass fishing?" I said, "A spinnerbait." He said, "Throw it." So I took that Houdini, and I mean, it was magic. I caught 17, and nobody else caught one.
Wow.
So he did an article on that stupid spinnerbait, man. So now when I go down to Louisiana and we go red fishing or whatever, I got a spinnerbait on.
So I see that you in that Houdini, you got the green pumpkin back and the kind of white bottom, and then you kind of got like some pink and light cream color.
Yeah, it's like iridescent. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a rainbow trout.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can dictate that profile. You know, I love fishing a quarter, and I had one of my BASS buddies showed me that little trick. Now he took me to school with a 1/4 ounce spinnerbait. You know, and again, that's something different, and that's what people forget sometimes. If I can't find the dumbest fish, you know, that around, then you got to get smart. You got to start changing sizes. You got to change colors. You got to do something that nobody else is doing.
I do like
when I say that dumbest
fish are good though. The dumb fish are fun.
Well, you're exactly right. You know, it makes you feel like a professional for sure. And but I go to these places, and you know, I'm just over 60 years old, and I go to places that 20 and 30-year-old guys won't go. I mean, they will not. It's too much work. But dude, I'll jump in there and be smiling. I love it, man. I love it. Crossing logs, you know, hanging out with a cottonmouth all day, you know, got spider webs all over you. But I know there's a dumb fish in there, man, that hadn't never seen a bait.
You can miss me with the snake play. I almost shot holes in my boat on the Red River down in Louisiana. So,
well, I don't see them because I'm not looking for them, right? So that's my take on it. That's sort of like the ostrich with his head in the sand. I'm not looking for it.
I had one come home with me. Well, I think it might have been last year. I drove, some bitch rode the whole way home from an hour away on the river. And he was in my bottom of my kayak, and whenever I went, and I'm like, "What in the hell?" And it was in my garage.
Oh, God.
And it was one of them northern water snakes, and I'm like, "Buddy, you are not in the appropriate place."
To where? Oh man.
So what kind of rods do you guys like, man? What kind of rods and
oh my God, here we go.
Rods, reels, line.
Here we go. Here we go. You're gonna laugh at me, but look, I'm gonna shoot it straight. Go ahead.
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Right.
I have 2 spinnerbait rods. Technically I have 3 spinnerbait rods because 2 of them are the same rod. But most of the time, a majority of the year, my spinnerbait rod is a medium power, moderate fast action rod. I like the medium power because when I say medium power, I'm talking about a 1/4 to 3/4 ounce lure rating on this rod. It's a Temple Fork Outfitters Taction Bass medium moderate fast. I like the medium because I get a nice long cast out of it. It's not too stiff. It doesn't bend out the wire on my spinnerbaits most of the time on the hook set. And, you know, it allows me to fight that fish really well and not damage the spinnerbait that much. The moderate action, obviously, whenever these fish come up and eat a spinnerbait, most of the time they're inhaling it from the back. They're typically not eating the spinnerbait head first like they do with some swim baits and stuff like that. A lot of times they're hitting those blades, or they're coming up to grab the poof in the skirt. So, you're getting them where they're eating it from the back. And if they're eating it from the back, a fast action rod can rip that spinnerbait right out of their mouth whenever you go to set that hook. So I like a moderate fast action for that. And like I said, that medium power is pretty big deal for me most times of the year, because I'm going to be throwing a wide range, whether it's 3/8, a half, or a 3/4. I even have a couple 1/4 ounce spinner baits that if I really need to burn the surface, that I'll use. So I need to have a wide range, what I can do with it. And that rod works well for me. In the wintertime, late fall, wintertime, early spring, I make it a little bit heavier. It's a medium heavy power. And I can get away with a fast action rod because I'm typically slow rolling the spinnerbait. I'm either going to be bouncing it off of the bottom, or I'm going to be bouncing it through, cover, but I'm going to be working it a lot slower during that time of year. So I don't need that moderate fast tip for whenever they inhale it. I don't need that moderate fast tip to not pull it out of their mouth. So I can get away with the medium heavy fast during those times of the year. That's it. 7 foot, because I like to be accurate. I don't want anything longer than 7 foot. If they made a 6'10", I'd be happier with that. But 7 foot is where I like to stay at.
Nice.
Mine's simpler than that. People laugh at me, but I promise you, in all my years, the best spinnerbait rod in America is a Berkeley lightning rod in a medium action.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to Walmart and buy the stupid thing for $39. At one time I had a little deal and I was getting them for like 10 or 12, but the rod itself is light. It's kind of whippy. I like a 6 foot if I'm in smaller creeks, but if I'm in a little bit bigger river, I'm good with 6'6". But I was showing a kid today, when I'm throwing that spinnerbait, I'm not launching them like Jake is in the rivers. I'm roll casting a lot. A lot of that's just wrist action, not a lot of arm. It don't put arm fatigue on me. So, and when that fish loads up on that stupid thing, I'm letting the rod play. So I'm basically throwing, and I had a hard time finding them. I got, like in December, I found them in 2 or 3 different places, and I ordered me a dozen. So I've got a dozen 6'6" lightning rods. In my opinion, chatterbait, buzzbait, spinnerbait, best rod in America. $39.95.
Under $40.
And what's funny is what he's mentioning is the exact same properties that some of these rod manufacturers are putting into their rods and upcharging for whatever they're upcharging, because that lightning rod has a super moderate bend. That thing, you could probably bend that thing in the middle and touch both sides of the floor with it. Am I wrong, Tim?
No, that's correct. That is
correct. I mean, it's a super moderate bend. It's super strong, and if you do break it, they're not cheap. They're not hard to replace. Expensive at least wise. But
they're getting harder to find. I like to cry, man, when I got looking on the internet. Oh, none available, not available, not available. But I found them.
I mean,
I was doing though, Jake, I was paying big money for my rods, and at the end of the year in a kayak, especially on a river situation, you're pretty rough on them. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would look at my rod box, and the only rod that would have all the guides on it would be that stupid $39 dang lightning rod.
Listen, I don't want anybody.
This is a no-brainer.
I don't want anybody that buys my rods at the end of every year to listen to this, but 100% kayak fishing is some of the most just hardest on your equipment, rod wise, with between the guides and the tip. Like it's always a mess with us. You know what I mean? It's always a mess, but I was showing here on the camera. I know that the podcast people aren't going to be able to see it, but to what Tim's point and my point was with that moderate action, I'm holding, this is the middle of my rod. and that's how much flex I'm getting out of the middle of my rod. That's whenever I start looking for a spinnerbait rod, you know, and it's the same way up at the tip. You know, up the tip, it bends. It's not
But you look at your rod taper too now. Your rod taper, that looks like a light rod too.
It's a medium.
Big.
Yeah, it's a
what
medium.
I'm saying is, as far as weight wise, in your hand, it's probably a light rod.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's people that look, cheaper don't mean better all the time, but in some cases, cheaper can be better. That's the same thing in sunglasses and anything else. I mean, because there's a lot of junk out there that guys or people are going and buying. But I picked up this kid's combo today, and bless his heart, he's proud of his stuff. And I'm not going to call the company. You know, they sell those combos, but that stupid rod felt like a fence post in my hand. And here he is trying to throw a dang spinnerbait on it, man.
I'll tell you right now, you cannot fish a spinnerbait on a very stiff action, you know, rod.
No.
If you're doing that, if you're trying to fish a spinnerbait on a very stiff rod, you are going to lose more fish than you'll ever even know hit.
Well, my thing is, if I've only got one rod, it's going to be my spinnerbait rod, and I'm going to have to learn how to catch a jig fish with a medium action or a worm with a medium action. I'm not going to go the other way.
No, you're spot on.
So,
Go ahead.
So what kind of line you guys using on them?
I'm
that one too, buddy.
Yeah, I know. Tim's probably going to say he's straight braid.
Nope.
No, well, so I being in a kayak, and I'm gonna give people some juice, and this might not be juice for everybody, but it's certainly juice for me. When you're in a kayak and you're fishing, every time you set the hook, you're getting pulled towards the fish.
That's
so every single one of my rods, and it doesn't matter what I'm using it for. Even my crankbait rods have a braid main line. I typically I stay right in that 30-pound to 20-pound braid, depending on what I'm using. Depending if it's a medium heavy, it's 30-pound. If it's medium, it's 20-pound. Rod power wise. And then I'll adjust my leaders whatever I need them to be. My medium power rods, I'll do a 12 to 14-pound leader, and my medium heavy rods will get a 16 to 18-pound leader. And I rarely do I ever throw monofilament because I hate stretch. Even for my top water baits, I throw a lot of my top water, like my poppers and my walking baits. I'll throw those with fluorocarbon, a small fluorocarbon leader. But I'm a braid because if I have stretch and I'm getting pulled towards a fish, I promise you I'm going to lose that big smallmouth.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest names in the business fish straight braid, that river fish. And but I'm a little bit old school. I found this line back in 2010, I think, or 2011, and I'm just stuck with it. I used to be a string guy all the way, but I use Academy Sports, their H2O line, and I promise you, that's the same thing as big game. You can pull a truck with it. I buy the quarter-pound spools, and usually this time of year, they run a special. You can get them 2 for $5. I change my line frequently. I will say that. But the green that I use kind of dissipates in the water better than anything I know of. And my setups are set up around that 15-pound trilene. I'm not trilene, H2O Academy Sports line. There's one thing that I do throw braid on, and that's my like my buzz bait rod, something top water. But I've got a whippy rod with it.
Yeah.
So that's the big deal. One of my kids was down in Florida with me, and we were filming. He caught 11.3 off of a creek, and it had he caught it off of like a 130 whopper flop. And it had braid, and it had that little wimpy rod. If it hadn't been for that wimpy rod, it'd lost that fish. That fish took 3 or 4 big runs, didn't even have a net. And I was filming, and when I seen how big that fish was, man, I went paddle straight to him, and I was like, dude, just hang on, thumb him, and I will grab this fish when it comes up. But that's the only thing I throw braid on. But most time, I mean, there are other occasions. If I pick up a spinning reel, I might do something a little different. But most of the time, 90% of the time, I'm throwing that H2O Academy Sports line, 15-pound test.
I mean, it's just, you don't have to like go crazy with line, and you don't have to spend crazy money on every single thing.
No. Because again, now it's a fish is a fish is a fish is a fish. You know what I'm saying? And fishing is fishing is fishing is fishing. It really is, man. And I've been down that road, especially in the bass boat world. Overthinking everything.
Yeah.
Crap, just be simple, man. Just go freaking fishing. And I love passing it on to kids. And actually, I went back to work 2 years ago. I'm back in the teaching and coaching world, and I'm actually the bass coach at my school that I'm at. So nice. I'm gonna turn them on to this podcast. But anyway, I mean, and that's all I'm trying to teach him too, dude. There's a dream out there that all these kids have gotten, and I keep saying this, that the industry's lying to these kids. You got to start off crawling before you walk, and you got to walk before you run. But you got to go back to just simple fishing, man, like creek fishing and river fishing. What do you think a lake is? A lake is just a creek or a river with water piled up over it.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fish are gonna relate to it like a creek. So all these moms and dads like, oh my God, I got to get an $80,000 bass boat for Johnny. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Wherever those moms and dads are that are buying $80,000 bass boats, I'm up for adoption.
I heard that. I need a sponsor. I need a sponsor. No, there was a lady. I saw this in person. I'm always trying to educate my kids and educate myself. The day that you quit trying to educate yourself is the day that you're going to fail. So, I go to a lot of those Bass U things, and I listen to those guys. Man, I love that crap. And this lady was sitting in there, and she was dead serious. She bought a $86,000 bass boat, had no idea how to drive a trailer, back it, not even know how to drive or crank a boat, just for her kid to be able to fish in these tournaments. And I thought, man, wow, that is crazy.
You're making me feel like I don't love my son enough.
Yeah, right.
I looked at both mine. I'm like, sorry, don't get any ideas. Look, because I grew up, man, in a different era. I grew up getting to go with my grandfather. My grandfather in this part of the country is a legend. And look, I was his trolling motor for about the first 3 years of my life. I didn't fish. All I did was paddle. And I loved being there and just watching, So trolling motor Tim.
Trolling motor Tim. So anyway, what do you guys do for trailers? How about we talk about trailers?
Oh, there's a good one.
You want me to go first again, Tim?
You go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So depends on the time of year, but if I'm trying to go slow, I'll throw something with a paddle tail on the back of it. Pick whatever paddle tail swim bait you like. I like to be cheap in my trailers, so I'll go down the street to Bass Pro Shops and I'll buy their little 3.3 shad because I'm not going to pay $8 to put some Kayak that are going to fall apart on the first fish on there. So those little 3.3 paddle tails, if I'm slowing down, that's what I'll use. If I'm trying to run them fast, I'll use a fluke, or I'll use there's a company here locally, a good buddy of mine. He's a military vet, and he makes soft plastics. His name is Tactical Fishing Company, and this is actually a chatterbait trailer, but it's got a it doesn't have any. There's no resistance to it. So if I'm trying to move it fast, I'll use that. But most of the time, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'll start off the day with a trailer. And after about 2 times of replacing it, I'm tired of it because I'll go through about 4 or 5 bags of those trailers if I keep putting them on every single time, and eventually they still eat it without a trailer on it anyway. So, you know, I won't use a trailer most of the time in the summertime just because it you know, if I am trying to keep it up top and trying to move it across the top, it's just more weight and more, you know, more bulk that I have to reel faster. So, but that's it.
That's it. So really springtime. That's what you're saying.
Springtime is when they get trailers, and most of the time those will be paddle tail swim baits. Yeah.
Okay. Tim?
I use a like for my river series, that chartreuse and white one, I use a Zoom twin tail trailer, just a basic straight trailer. And on those black spinner baits, and I use a green pumpkin, and we got a bullfrog color one, I use a ultra wide chunk on the back of it. Now there are times, and that's strictly river and creek fish, okay? But I remember in Eufaula, I got in on a shad spawn, and what I was doing was basically what Jake was doing. I matched my shad pattern with like a Kayak on the back of it, and I had small willow leaves on it, and I was just trying to match the hatch. That's all I was trying to do it. But you know, typically 90% of the time, I'm throwing either that. I mean, the guy at the mom and pop tackle store that I shop at a lot, like I'll go in and those Zoom twin tail trailers, I'll buy 10 packs, and that ultra vibe chunk black, I'll buy 10 or 12 packs, and you know, now walk out. I panicked back during COVID because you remember there was a shortage in a lot of stuff. You couldn't get certain Zoom things. You couldn't get nothing. So, dude, every time I'd find them, I'd hoard them. Like, I've got a pegboard in my basement, in my bass cave, and those are the first 2 pegs, and I'll fill them up. I keep them full. But that's simple.
And simple. Both of you guys have really simple approaches to trailers.
Well, if I'm assuming Jake can contest to this too. I mean, as much time, money, effort that we've been on the water and experimented with so many stupid things, you keep going back to the things that work. Yeah. And it's usually the simplest things that you started out with. And a guy told me that one time, says, man, I use the KISS method. And I'm like, what? Keep it simple,
stupid.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
I was just talking about that with someone the other day about an overcomplicated product that had come out. And I was ready to smash it with a rock because it was overcomplicated. It didn't work. I'm like, you know, if this thing was just simple and didn't move and didn't adjust, it would like work perfect. You know, but it had to be like the Batmobile and change.
Tim, listen to this guy talk. Meanwhile, he's sitting there with a Hobie PA 360 and live scope. Listen to him.
That's true. But you know, if you think about it, it's really simple. If you compare it to a bass boat,
it is. It is. I was having that conversation with Ricky though, and he was talking about, you know, the market now as far as the bass lure company market, that the forward-facing sonar has just went on such a craze that's where, I mean, if you go and you look at most of these magazines, that's all the articles are written about.
Yeah.
So the hype's about that forward-facing sonar and the baits that they use, that it's put other things on the back burner. But you know, I just kind of laugh like, okay, you know, I'm gonna keep throwing my spinner baits. I'm gonna keep catching 8, 10, 11-pound bass, and you know.
Well, so I have a theory with that, and I'm pretty sure other people have a theory with that too. The bass boat companies are all they're doing is they're targeting the young folks, right? Because every young kid now plays video games. Hell, they got video games about bass fishing, which doesn't make zero goddamn sense to me. Because if I buy a video game to go race cars, it's because it's illegal for me to drive 130 miles an hour out on my street. If I'm gonna buy a video game to go fish for bass, I'm just going to take my ass down to the river and fish for bass. But
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm sounding old in saying that, but that's what these companies are doing with the bass boats and all the electronics and all the other stuff. They're just appealing to these young kids. And if you look at it, these young kids keep coming in. And you know what did what's his face did a video of all the setups at the Bassmaster tournament?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that
Like one guy had
Japanese dude had
$40,000.
like 50. That Japanese dude had like $50-something thousand worth of electronics and transducers on his boat, man.
That's incredible.
I mean, that's stupid. What I mean, why have you got to have 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and 1 on each side? I'm like, wow, dude.
But so here's the real deal. That dude didn't spend.
Why not just throw out Roundup or Rotenone? Why not just poison and just pick them up with a net? I mean, that's about it.
It still doesn't help you catch them directly.
No.
Like you still have to hook the fish. You still have to convince them to bite a piece of plastic, you know. And like everything, man, right now I feel like the forward-facing sonar is just so easy for those companies to say, here's the new bait that you have to have, right? You have to have a little tracer minnow. You have to have these little tiny, specially weighted jig heads. So it's, and next year it's going to be something else.
Oh yeah.
Who was the first person that you knew of, Kurt, that had forward-facing sonar on their kayak?
You. You're the reason I got it, man. It was Seminole years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, Jake beat me with forward-facing sonar. Oh, I gotta get this.
Well, I mean, the thing that the industry's not telling you though is those cats get their hands on better transducers than anybody else in America can get. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
the one guy using a box.
The one guy he had the new transducer that Garmin was putting out. He had new units that Garmin hasn't even released to the public yet. So, like, yeah, these guys are getting all their stuff set up. And then on top of that, they're getting their stuff set up by professionals who are telling them exactly, what megahertz to be using and stuff like that. But, that's a whole nother, we could have a whole other
podcast. They're not paying $50,000 for it.
No.
I doubt that guy paid for it, man.
Heck no.
They're like, let's showcase. And I get what the companies are doing. They're like, let's showcase our stuff.
Right.
And they're macking out their boats.
Dude, that's like we were laughing at, every year that I've ever been to ICAST, Yeti has always won, product of the year. And, I came out about 2 weeks before the last ICAST I went to, and I had a paper sack. And I wrote in magic marker, this is a Yeti paper sack, and it's going to win product of the year. And I'd be darned if they didn't have some kind of bag that won product of the year. I mean, it's a name there, dude, and they just put so much money in promotion, and people just get caught up,
Yep.
Yep.
Well, guys, this has been a great show, man. We've run about an hour, which is perfect. I'd like to give you both an opportunity to thank your sponsors, your family, your friends, whoever makes fishing good for you or easier for you. Jake, you want to start?
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. You guys know I say it almost every single tournament that I go to. My mentor and father-like figure is Jeff Little. I've spent more time on the water with Jeff than probably anybody else has in the last 5 to 10 years. That is a learning experience in and of itself every time you share the water with that fella. And I'm very fortunate to have that relationship in this industry. That relationship in this industry made some of my other relationships in this industry possible. Sponsored by Torqeedo, sponsored angler with Team Torqeedo. Really looking forward to the new motor coming out for them. Innovative Sportsman, Trey Leach, he makes that really awesome inflatable boat that I've been running. That boat is it's a battle tank. It'll go anywhere I need it to go. It will, it's super fast. It's super stable. It's perfect for the river. It doesn't make noise. I absolutely love that platform. And then I'm associated also with Temple Fork Outfitters as my rod sponsor, and I am associated with Yak Attack as an accessory sponsor. And loving the new stuff they're coming out with. They got that new leaderboard. I think it's really going to take a hold. Some of their rod storage components that they just released were I mean, I don't want to say that I influenced that design, but I was doing it with the Jackson rod stagers on the side of my kayak before Yak Attack even came out with that product. And, I think that that's going to be a big product for people who want to get their rods from that vertical position to the horizontal. That way you're not, getting tangled up in trees. So I'm partnered up with them, and, Wind Rider is the other one. They make apparel. I got some rain gear, and it's phenomenal that doesn't leak. And I got some sun shirts to keep the sun off of me and keep me from getting skin cancer. So outside of that, I want to thank my wife because she lets me go fishing every day. And I don't think it's really let me. She really just wants me to leave. She just doesn't want me to.
What's your milkman look like? What does your milkman look like?
He's 6'4" attractive man. He's got a full head of
Jeff
hair.
Little's what it's
The glare doesn't hurt her eyes whenever he comes in the house like it does mine with my head. But very attractive milkman. So no, it's okay. It's quite all right. Trust me. It's I don't let my wife around Jeff too often just because. But although she's watched some of Jeff's camping videos, and I don't think she's real keen on the not showering for multiple days in a row, so I think we're safe there.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh God, man.
Sorry, Jeff.
Poor Jeff, man. He's not even here to defend himself.
He's not.
He's an easy target, though, man.
He is. He's honest to God, he's the nicest person in kayak fishing.
That's the truth.
I don't know a single person.
He's nicer than me, that's for sure, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're just an angry Ohioan, so
yeah, that's right, man.
I'd be angry if I was from Ohio too.
Oh my God! All right, we need to do a podcast on Jeff Little stories. That would probably
that would be a good one.
Well, listen, if we're gonna do that, if we're going to do that, you got to give me some time to get a hold of Jed Plunkert and Chris Gorsuch and Juan Farouk. Because if I can get those three guys to come on to the podcast together and get their schedules lined up, we are going to thoroughly embarrass Jeff, and he might not have a job in the industry anymore. So
he's straight up, man. But I tell you what, we have been together and been off in some unusual things. I would like to, if it's first and foremost, is my wife. I mean, I couldn't do what I do without her holding down. I mean, we have 2 teenage boys and 3 other children. So, what she does, she holds this fort down, and I'm not going to say the word "let me." She gives me her graces to go fish, and that's you can't explain that. If I go under the pretense that I don't have her graces, then I'm usually not going to have a good tournament or a good outing. But she understands the whole industry, and she's very good about it. Actually, in my house, there's a room downstairs that I built when I built my house. You can drive through my house, and I kept my boat and truck hooked up. But I had a little room off the side for all the guys that come through here and fish with me. And we named it the Little Suite for a long time because Jeff stayed here so much. But, I mean, that takes a special person to take all the personalities in the fishing world and just embrace them and make them feel welcome. And she does it gracefully with a smile, and I got to thank her for that. But, Ricky at Redline, Redline is an awesome company. They have an awesome product. He stands behind everything. He's very passionate about what he does. And, if it wasn't for Ricky was my first sponsor. And he took a chance on me when nobody else took a chance on me. And I try to do, and explain to people that it's more than just a working relationship. It's family. And he's treated me and my family very, very graciously. And, he has a great product at a box store price. He will build you anything. And he does that a lot. He builds custom baits for different people, but he has other products too. His swim jigs are probably as good a jig as there is out on the market for swim jigs. And I just have to shout out to that. And I'm with you, Jake, with Yak Attack. Furnished me with a lot of great product, and they get my feedback a lot of times on certain things, and just great people to work for. And Torpedo, Jeff was a big part of that. Jeff Little and Juan Varut were the biggest names in the business when I got in, and they've just good people. Yeah. And Pure Fishing, for sure. And trying to think if there's anybody else sponsor wise. I know I'm probably leaving somebody else, and I apologize. But I mentioned Jeff, and I've mentioned Juan, but Drew Gregory. Drew Gregory was as big a part as Jeff Little was, as an inspiration, a mentor for the sport, period. And, Drew is a heck of a fisherman. He's a heck of a personality. And he's done probably as much, if not more, than a lot of the others in this sport put together. Very innovative. And he's been here many times, too. I tell this story all the time, and that was when he was with Jackson. Lance Coley and I saw the first Coosa that he ever designed on a napkin. Hey, man, what do you think about this? And it was really cool concept. And then all of a sudden it materialized, and and the sport changed after that. So it's really cool. And people like Kurt Smith's, just a nicer guys you'll ever meet. Seriously. And
who?
There's just some really cool guys in the kayaking.
We talking about the same Kurt Smiths that I know?
Kurt Smith's, that's him, man. Who was a KBF champion. That's the Kurt Smith I'm talking about. But you remember in the day, man, I mean, there's a lot of cool people in the kayak world. And, the last couple of years, I've kind of chilled out a little bit, took bigger roles with Wilderness. And I am sponsored by Wilderness System Kayaks. And so I've just been a daddy, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to regret that. I still fish predominantly every day. And we just got back into the kayak scene together, Lance and I. We were partners for about 10 years. And we just fished our first tournament together in Thomaston, Georgia, with Drew in the Kayak Adventure Series, I think is what it's called. And I'm really looking forward to that series. I love that, man. I mean, that's our River Bassin crowd coming back, and his numbers are up. He's had over 80 anglers in
which is amazing.
All three competitions that he's had. It is, man.
I mean, for brand new.
Here's the thing, though, Kurt. Well, Kurt, here's the thing, though. He cut the strings. I mean, you fish competitively just like I have. I mean, it was almost getting to the point where it's just stifling. There were so many freaking rules, and we ought to be showcasing what a kayak can do. We were all mimicking exactly what a bass boat will do. I care less about that. I was in that world for about 20 years. I love going up rivers and creeks and just following that adventure with a stupid kayak, a plastic boat that anybody else can do. And I think that's what people want. So I'm excited about his format. I love that. So, and I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for inviting me on. Like I said, I could talk your ears off about spinnerbaits, man. I love it.
Well, this has been a great show, man. I really appreciate both you guys coming on and talking about spinnerbaits and stuff. And I think that you opened my eyes to some stuff, both of you guys. And I think we're going to be helping a lot of people out, whether that's good or bad. I mean, I guess it depends when you come to the tournaments, man.
I'll even go as far as to say this: if anybody has questions about spinnerbait fishing and or even just power fishing, because I love to power fish, if you want to talk about it and you need help with it, feel free to reach out to me on any of my social medias, and I'll talk to you about it. If you're asking me specific questions about the Susquehanna River before July 28th and 29th, I'll probably respond to you July 30th. However, if you're asking questions about power fishing and you're genuinely interested in getting into the sport and trying to be a better power fisherman, I will give you as much time as I can. So
I feel the same way. You can look me up. I have a personal page. It's Tim Perkins, but I have another page. It's Tim Perkins Fishing. My YouTube channel is Tim Perkins Fishing, or the Outdoor Coach. And I've kind of gotten behind on my YouTube stuff. I had a hard drive that crashed on me that had like 50 something edited videos on it. It just broke my heart.
I would cry if that happened to my hard drive.
Look, I've had a guy trying to work on it for me, but oh my God, that hurt me. But I need to get back to editing. But Lord help, man, you have no idea what my schedule's like every day. We started football 2 weeks ago, and here in the South, that's what pays the bills, man. We started football, and we practiced 3 days a week from about 6:30 in the morning to about lunch. And then my kids are playing on an elite baseball team, so they practice 2 days a week on top of that. And we go to speed training 1 night a week. And then we play through the month of June, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, baseball. So, I mean, for an old man, dude, that's pretty rough. I'm trying to get I keep a rod with me all the time, but
see, my excuse isn't as good as yours is, because I'm behind on editing because there's fish out there to catch.
Well, that's where I'm at too. And I keep stockpiling them. I did a catch and cook. My kids love for me to cook these fish. And Tallapoosa River, I rarely ever keep fish out of there, but it was deemed actually the cleanest river in the eastern United States. It don't run through any major city, and I'm pretty close to the headwaters. So if I usually go down to the lake and catch those spots out of there, and we cook them. But we come back and I cook those. That's about the first time I've cooked those fish in about 2 years, and I miss that, and I put that on a video. But you guys need to come down, Jake. You're welcome. My door's open. I saw you on a video with Jeff Little, and I thought, damn. Y'all were on the swollen Susquehanna. But, man, he's a treat. I laugh at him sometimes because he'll pull some shit out of his tackle box, man, that you think, what the hell? And he'll catch fish on it.
Listen,
and I'm like, damn.
Let's not even get into the depth. We can have 2 podcasts on the depths of Jeff Little's tackle box and some of the nonsense that he has in there that you would think to yourself, my God, that's never going to work. And then you see him land a giant fish on it. And well, I give him a hard time because like he called me the one day. He was so excited. Gosh, he was so excited. It was some straight up Dahmer vibes. But he calls me and he tells me, he goes, there's 3 roadkills down here on the highway beside my house, and me and Tucker, or not Tucker, me and Sawyer are gonna go out and pick some of their hair off. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we're gonna cut some of their hair off and make some jigs with them. And I'm like, well, just go buy one, man. Just go buy some bucktail jigs.
But I do like we went to a lot of trade shows together. Jeff is not the dude that's going to go out and party with all the other guys and do their business deals. So we started a thing where we'd go out and fish, and it'd be me and him most of the time. But then other people started figuring it out, and dude, we settled a lot of stuff on the water at night, man, and it was a really cool scene. But I remember one time. He's supposed to be the smallmouth guru. Okay, so we were coming back from Oklahoma, and we stopped at this river I'd never heard of. And this kid that was a sales rep had mentioned it to him. And I was like, no, man, he don't know what he's doing. We don't need to listen to that crap, man. Let's go find another river. But little did I know, that's probably the best smallmouth river I have ever been on. I mean, I had 6 smallies over 20 inches the first day.
Oh, God.
I was catching them on that stupid river series. And, that's when Jeff was just getting hooked up with, what's a Elastic?
Z-Man.
Z-Man. And he's like, what you catching on? I said, Jeff, don't ask a stupid question. You know what I'm catching it on. I'm catching on a spinnerbait, and I'm catching on the one that I make. And he's like, "You think I could have one?" I said, "You got to take a picture with it." "No, I can't do that, man." I said, "Well, you ain't getting no spinnerbait." Look, after about the fourth or fifth one over 20 inches, man, I thought he was gonna cry on me a little bit. I said, "Well, okay." I love to pick at it, but look, I did not know this. All right, I am Creek Indian. There's a lot of Creek Indian in my blood, but there's a whole story. The Tallapoosa goes through a Horseshoe Bend down here. Well, I didn't know the whole story until a couple of years ago. Jeff and I were in Oklahoma, and they were having the national powwow, the Creek Indian powwow. Well, of course, we never have any kind of plans. Okay, you just kind of roll up and let it hang, right? There was no hotels. Okay, we end up at this Roach Den hotel, and this guy was in the parking lot drinking beer, and he said he was a night watchman. Look, we go in this, and I got pictures somewhere, and it's got these little like twin beds. And Jeff is like 6 foot forever, and his feet are hanging off about the knee down. He got these little horsey covers on it, you know. And we're in this stupid hotel. He cut the lights off, and I feel bugs crawling across my face. I said, "Damn it! If I feel one more bug, man, I'm going to the truck." But that was an experience and a half right there, dude. And that's where
Jeff has told me that story too, by the
way. Did he tell you he was coming down here with Hans and his suitcase fell out of his truck? Look, he went 3 days with the same pair of underwear. He's dead plastic.
I don't know if this can make a podcast, Kurt. I don't know. We might have to cut this part out.
Yeah. I think this is where we're going to end this right here, guys. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you, everyone who's listening right now. If any of you guys have any questions, Tim Perkins and Jake Harshman are here to help you guys. Thanks,
man. All right, dude. Thanks, guys.
Well, appreciate you having me on, Kurt.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
Yes. See ya.